All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the webinar on reporting in Arlo today. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick. I'm one of the support team within the UK. I can see a lot of you in the list, which I've spoken to in the past. But for those who aren't here, it's great to have you with us. I hope you learned something today. This is actually hopefully the first in a series of webinars around features within Arlo. We wanted to kick this off with reporting because reporting is an incredibly powerful and useful feature in an Arlo and something that we think a lot of you can get a lot more out of. When you think about working with Arlo, you are always aggregating more and more data. The more courses you run, the more registrations you take, the more orders you're processing, it's more information you're storing within this. And Arlo is incredibly good at helping you use that data in the here and now to run your training business. But there's another side to that that exists forevermore, and we can look at that data to help make better decisions. So Arlo has a whole host of reports that either very easily let you get a quick snapshot and a very quick insight into, how am I performing right now, or how was the last quarter, or how many people attended these sorts of events. And it has a lot of reports as well that allow you to take a much deeper dive, become a lot more granular in the search and in what you're returning. And with that, you can start evaluating where your business is performing well, what courses are performing well, who's paying frequently, and take the lessons and the tricks that you've learned from that and apply those to the areas that through reports you can identify aren't performing as well. So not only is Arlo here to help you run your training business more effectively and more automatedly today, it's here to help you make better decisions on how to run your training business in the future, how to sell more training, which is more effective, and ultimately make more money from that. So there's a lot to cover. Let's have a little run through on the agenda then. We're going to sort of kick it off just very easily with accessing reports in Arlo, just having a look where to find them, layout and structure. We're going to look at when to use advanced reports, and really this is an introduction to both basic and advanced reports, a comparison between the two of them, and a focus on when is it that we want to use advanced reports over those basic ones, and it's quite often. Then the bulk of this, we're going to go through some common reporting scenarios. We've got sort of 5, 6 of them lined up, things which we think you're likely to encounter. We'll build those reports in this webinar and explain why we're doing them in the way they are and what you can get out from that. Then quickly, we'll take a look at saving favorites and scheduling reports. They're incredibly powerful features, so we just want to highlight them a bit. And then finally, we're going to look at exporting that data from Arlo and then providing data analysis on that. So what can we learn, not just from the data that we've specified we want, the information we want, but what can we learn from that to make those decisions and to take actionable insight to improve the quality and the type of training and the amount of training you're selling tomorrow. Right, so let's kick it off, shall we? Accessing reports in Arlo, a nice easy thing to do. Reports live as their own independent tab up on the top navigation, just to the left of settings. Here, split it into two sides, really easy. Left-hand side, they're your categories, and they're the breakdown of your individual reports. Everyone has a description as well. You can see that a lot of these have the blue advanced next to them. That's because we have basic reports and advanced reports in Arlo. We're going to look at the difference between those in just a second. But then over on the right-hand side, that mentioned favorite reports, they're saved and stored here for you to quickly access. And if we had scheduled reports, which we will do later, they would be saved and stacked up here for you to be able to look at the schedule, edit it, or maybe run it now. So reports, nice and easy to find, clearly laid out, very simple to understand which one you should be looking at. So when to use advanced reports, or moreover, let's have a look at the difference between a basic report and an advanced report and understand when we would want to use one over the other, predominantly focusing on the advanced report. So to do this, I want to take a look at an example. Let's pretend that we need to run a report on registrations that were completed within a certain period, and they belong to the membership of your organization, your training organization. So if we look at the basic registration list report, we can see that we could specify a time period. So we could say that all courses that finished, let's say within the last year, so we can go back to January, or within the year to date, it's here, that's fine, and we can specify that we just want completed registrations. But then if we look at these other conditions, these are all the conditions we can choose in a basic report, we see that we can't select membership as something to filter by. Down here, these are all the columns I can choose, and we can see that I can't see in here membership. And the reason being for that is the membership field is actually a contact field. And this basic registration list can only pull information and filter on information, which is registration information, whether that's a system registration information or registration custom field. So we can't do that with this report. In fact, we couldn't even build this report out, export it, and then filter the information in Excel because we can't even include the membership value as the custom field as a column. So we can't use a basic, but we can come across to this advanced registration list report, and we can build the same thing and include that information here. So the first thing we want to check is we wanted to know everyone who had completed an event. So we'll say registration status equals completed, right? So we just specified that they must have finished it. And we can say, let's say the event, end date, oh, sorry, no, let's say start date was on or before, was within the previous 1 year, right? And then here, we're gonna go contact and we can say, I want the member, right? So I wanna see everyone who is a member. So let's just have a quick look here. I've now just pulled filters or conditions to filter the information that's going to be returned back from 3 different entities, the registration, the event, and the contact entity. And I've said that I only want to see registrations that have a completed status, so finished the course, and the event start date has been within the previous 1 year, so the last 12 months, and they need to be a member of this organization. Awesome. So I can now just preview these results, and there we go. That's everyone. And if we wanted to validate that these people are actually members, I can also add in a column here. So you can see I'm looking at the contact member column, and let's just pull this across so it's nice and easy. Let's put their full name. So not only can I add pieces of information from different entities just by searching in the column list, I can drag and drop them around to build a report structure that suits me. And then we can see here, everyone's a member, right? So we validated that piece of information. So now I could export that as a spreadsheet or a CSV. I can use these sortings to change the order in which they're shown, then export the information and use that for whatever's needed. Wonderful. Okay, so that's one example of when an advanced report needs to be used over a basic. Let's look at one other quick one. Let's look at all orders by a single billing contact, right? So I want to know all existing orders from one person, a billing contact from one person. So we're going to go into the basic order list, and we can see here, I could say, I could put an order date within a time frame. Very similarly, I can set the statuses again, but I don't have a condition to set that I want a specific order contact. I can include the order contact details, but again, then you're going to have to produce the report of all the information, export that, filter it down, and then finally you can include that. But we can only include the full name. Let's say we want the contact details of this person, so we're able to reach out to them and request them, a payment on the order. Well, let's have a look at this from the advanced report perspective. If we scroll down here, and we can see we're actually just going to use the one condition here. It's just going to be the build to, so we're already identifying that. I can just search for contact. Wonderful, you can see there's a lot of different options, but we're just interested in the contact. And equals, and it's going to let me do a search, and we're actually going to look for Felicity Merrington. And I'm going to leave that bit of information as is. But there we go. This just tells me all the orders. It actually says how much is due, what the order code was, the organization it was for, just like that. I can export that. I can include some more contact information, some other bits if I needed in the column. But within 30 seconds there on an advanced report, we were able to specify all orders from a single billing contact, which is really awesome. Let's have just a quick recap then of basic reports and advanced reports, just to summarize. Basic reports, fantastic because they're predefined filters and columns, right? They're really useful for a quick, snappy question of how many people have attended this type of course in the last 12 months? Or how many orders do I have for this, this template? They're very user friendly because of that. You saw that all the conditions were either sort of nicely laid out time filters or lookup boxes or drop downs, and the columns you want to include, you just tick them on and off. And then you can export those as a PDF or Excel. They're nicely formatted exports as well. So if you need to send them to someone outside the organization, they're well presented. So they're ready to go on that. They do have drawbacks. Predefined filters and columns, really easy to use, but don't necessarily have that flexibility. Very rarely can they pull bits of information from different entities. We saw that a registration report can't pull anything from a contact report when it's a basic one. Designed to run on a much smaller scale, they're quite slow to produce. They have a limit, I believe it's 10,000 lines per report. As your organization grows, you might already be at that point, you might be growing up to that point. You can find that you need a report on more than 10,000 records. It's certainly something I see on a semi-regular basis. And like I said, they do take a little while to run. They're not the quickest, snappiest reports to either build or run and produce results. The advanced reports, on the other hand, they give you the maximum flexibility. We saw that I was able to pull information from different entities to set conditions, and then I'm able to search for almost any piece of information I want to introduce or to add to the columns, and I can reorder those columns as I want. They're very quick to produce data when you run them, and it can report on the full size of your data set. They have more exporting options around CSVs, and they're very good for using outside of Arlo to further analyze and manipulate that data. However, there is a learning curve. You saw that it's a bit more complicated. It doesn't have that nice UI to it, but that's all right because we're going to address that in this webinar. So you've got a good idea of the difference between a basic report and an advanced report, and you can understand why we want to be using advanced reports for the more complicated queries, really. Want to sort of look at those common reporting scenarios now. Registration reports, probably one of the most common reports you want to run within Arlo. We're going to look at two sort of common examples here and run through each of them. Now that we have an understanding how to work with this. So let's imagine organization X, design queue in our instance, has given us a call and they've said, we want to see everyone who's registered on a course with you since the 1st of April. Quite a simple query. In fact, simple enough that we're going to use this, we're going to use the basic registration list report to build this. So we have two conditions that we need to address here. We want to know everyone who's registered since a certain period of time, and they need to be just for design queue. Straight away, organization field, so I can specify the organization. Let me just type in design queue. It's the head office in this instance. And we want to look at when they registered. So not interested in course starting or course finishing. We're interested in this registered field here. So we're going to go for the 1st of April, 2020. Click that all the way through to today. I could include some other bits of information here. Let's say I want to know the email and phone number of those people as well for some reason. That's it, and then we just run the report. See what I mean about them being a bit slow? And there we go. Awesome. Loads of results just produced out to this. I could export this as an Excel now. It's just going to have a think. There you go. Downloaded it. We can open that up just to have a quick look. There you go. I can now send that across to the learning contact HR manager of DesignQ who requested this information. That's fine. Oh, in fact, let's say we did send that across and they actually said, this is awesome, but could you include the department that each of these people work in? I said, sure, not a problem. Let's have a look. Can I find department? There's no department in the basic report. And that's because, once again, the department is a contact field entity. And we can't get that in the basic report. So we need to go back and produce a second one for design queue as an advanced registration list report. Not a problem, we can do that as well. So what are the conditions we have now? We need people who have registered since the 1st of April just for design queue. That's fine. So we're going to say the contact employment organization equals design queue head office. And we're going to say the registration created date, so we want to know when that was made from. And we're going to select the on or after. And once again, we can use this to say 1st of April, and that's automatically going to count up to today because it's on or after. And then down in here, we can go into department. So registration, contact, employment department. And let's say actually they're interested in that. They're not really interested in the location, the status, or the type of that, but they do want the full name, their department, and then the email. And I can produce that and done. Awesome. There you go. That's everyone in the department. Let's say actually they're interested mostly in their department. So we go down here. That's not going to let me filter by department. That's unfortunate. Normally it would let me filter by department, so I could then bulk these. But you could just as easily export this out into Excel, put a filter on top of it, filter down by department, so you can either look at individual departments or order A to Z, so you can quickly group that data together. But you get the idea very easily. We just built an advanced report in like less than a minute to specify everyone from Design HQ who had registered since the 1st of April and which department they're in. So those are two really good examples of a basic and an advanced report on how to make them and to utilize them to provide information to organizations and customers that you work with. Equally, you could build these reports so you could gain a deeper understanding of how to work or how your registrations are behaving and where your registrations are coming from. Let's move on. Let's take a look at this from an order perspective instead. So order reports are arguably actually some of the most important reports that you have within Arlo. This allows you to get an in-depth sight or in-depth perspective on how your business is performing financially. Similarly to the previous one, we're going to have a look at two examples. The first one is going to be a relatively simple one, and then we'll sort of expand on it a bit more, something a bit more complex. So let's imagine we want to see the total value of all orders paid in the last 12 months. So we want to know how much actual revenue has been generated in the last 12 months. So we're going to go to the order list report, basic, because this is quite a nice, easy query. And we've got two sort of criteria we need to match here yet again. The first one is we need to know when they of all orders that were totally paid within the last 12 months. And that's, in fact, we only have one query, apologies. So that can be defined from here, September 2019, and save that. Oh, of course I didn't save. So the 1st of September, let's say, come on, to the 1st of October here, done. And then we can just make sure, we don't have another condition, we can just make sure we've got all of, yeah, let's say we wanted to include tax total as well, right? And maybe we wanted to include payment method. You know what? We probably want to include date paid. There you go. And then we can run that report. So not only can we see the individual order breakdown and the tax, but we can also see the total. So we very quickly know that we generate $11,526,000, pounds, euros, yen, whichever currency you're working in within the last 12 months. And we can see that 1,000 of whatever units you're in, of that is tax. So we can send that out to our accounts department. They can validate that that's actually how much money that has landed in the accounts from selling training in the last 12 months as well. That's perfect. Okay, let's take that and let's expand upon it with a slightly more advanced query. The next example, we want to find all the orders, but we want to know all the orders of outstanding balances. So now we're looking at how much money we're owed. So not only do we want to know how much money we're owed, but we want to include the contact details of the people who owe it, so billing contact information, so we can reach out to them and collect that payment pretty quickly. This isn't going to be something that we can do within here. You can see, again, we can put that order contact details in, but we couldn't include the contact information. So we're going to need to use the order list advanced report to generate this one. So first things first, we need to know the order payment due date is on or before today. So this is going to specify all orders that are due before today. And then we want to look at, want to make sure we're only looking at orders that have a total due to us. So we're actually going to say not equals 0. So this is saying for all orders that have a total amount which doesn't equal 0 and therefore more than 0, show us those. And then finally, what we're just going to put in is a final order one, which is just a status that not equals cancelled. So this just makes so we don't accidentally start reporting on cancelled orders, which quite probably do have balances due and do have payment due dates in the past. So we don't want that sort of interfering with the information. So let's have a look at what we've got in the columns down beneath. Now our conditions are sorted out. Order date, that's fine. I tell you what, I think I also want to know the payment due date as well, so I can prioritize who has not paid for the longest period. Order code, great. Type, fantastic. Organization name and billing contact name is great. And then the amount status and due. But what we also need is their email. Let's say their phone numbers. We want their work phone. Let's say we want their mobile as well, so we can try and reach out to them. Oh, didn't manage to include that. Wonderful. And then let's say I actually want to include these bits over here rather than on the end. So we've grouped our data together nicely. Let's see what we've got. Quite a few actually. But here, very quickly, we've now just produced a query to all of our orders in the past. So this isn't just in the last 12 months, but this is everyone since we started using Arlo that hasn't paid us for their training. And again, we can export this information. I just click this button. I can download this spreadsheet, open this up. And now I can just expand this. I can send this out to our accounts department and say, here's all the information you need to go chase up these people for payment. So we can actually have this in the actual realized revenue report rather than the outstanding revenue report. To sort of summarize there, we saw again two very quick to build reports that provide incredibly valuable insight to your business. How much money have you made in the last 12 months, or how much revenue have you made in the last 12 months in your bank account? And how much money is outstanding? How much do people owe you since you started delivering training with Arlo? And using those two, you can have a much better financial understanding of your business. Order reports, brilliant. Cover those off. The next one I want to look at, I want to keep sort of in the financial vein. We're going to look at it from a financial performance point of view instead. Event reports. Event reports is actually one of the ones that belongs to the performance reports. These are advanced or basic reports that are available for enterprise plan customers. So if you're not an enterprise customer, you won't be able to use this, but this is a useful thing to consider if you're looking at upgrading. There are very valuable performance reports. So as a training business, it's important to know which of your courses are delivering you the most revenue. And this is where this report comes in super handy. So if we go back across to here, lives underneath the courses list. Here we see course performance. We can open it up. And simply all we want to do here is we've actually already got a date range specified. That's saved as a default. And then we're going to open up these more options. And we just want to make sure that we're including all the different types of registrations. It's great information to have. So cancelled, approved, and completed. And then on the order side, the order line value. So this is the actual billed amount, including discounts. We want to know the credit notes. So how much have we had to refund back? And then the total here is going to give us order line value minus credit note line value to give us overall. So we can just drop that down, run the report. And here we go. You can see straight away, we can see the actual value overall, and we can see which of our courses within the last 12 months have provided the greatest value. So we can see here, full stack principles, SP1004 had 10 completed registrations. I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry, the full stack principles on the one beneath, 14 completed registrations. We had 4,000. We can see that one person cancelled, so we had the 800 refunded. So a total of 4,000 within that. So what was that, 20 seconds it took us to compile that report, and now I have a very accurate understanding of which of my courses are providing me the greatest amount of revenue or generating the greatest amount of revenue. So therefore, which of these courses should I be considering running more often? And if I'm not able to run them more often, how should I be evaluating ways to increase the demand for these courses through marketing efforts or through just returning to existing customers, and then being able to schedule more of those to deliver them to generate a higher amount. We'll take a look at this report again slightly further on in the webinar. Some more interesting things to do with this. Let's jump back. So, event report, that was just the one report, nice and easy to cover off. That's all the common examples. Reporting scenarios gone through. From that, I hope you've got a much better understanding on how you can quickly build reports within Arlo, whether that's just to have a quick snapshot of how you're doing right now, or what performances in the past, or how many courses are coming up in the future that don't have any registrations yet, or something really much more complicated, like which organizations are providing me the greatest revenue. We'll look at that actually in an example later on. And more precise queries around individual registrations based on certain custom information. It's all very capable. If any of those have been interesting, or you'd like to know more about them and you're not quite sure, or you've got ideas on that, get in touch with us in support. We're happy to have a conversation, happy to run through your scenarios and help you build out those reports as well. What happens once we've built those reports? Well, there's favoriting and scheduled reports. You don't want to be going in and building the same reports over and over again. That's just a massive waste of your time. Fortunately, we have some tools for that as well. We're going to look at this from both the basic and the advanced, because they're slightly different, but they achieve the same things. Basic actually has 3 settings. First thing I could do is I could save this as a favorite. You can provide it with a name. The description isn't too important. No one sees that other than yourself internally. So really the important value is providing a contextually accurate name for it. So I could save it as a favorite, and we saw that those appear on the right-hand bar. There's also save as default for only basic reports. And this means that I could set this report up as it is right now. So we've got that date range for the last year. We've got these settings down in here, and I can save this as default. And whenever I open this report, as long as I'm not opening a favorited version, it's going to have these settings. Really useful. And then finally, for a favorited report, so let's say if I save this one, once saved, it's going to give me the option, if you just bear with me for a moment, to go back into it. So this is now a favorited one. And you see I can schedule this report. And this is going to take us to this box here. We'll have a look at this in just a second from an advanced report instead. So same thing, but for an advanced report, let's say let's just jump into the registration list advanced. We've built out a report, so I'm not going to worry too much. I'm just going to save this to favorites here. Let's just say this is registration insights, right? Save that. And then we have this schedule option up in the top right-hand corner. Now within here, we can specify who we want to send this to. This doesn't have to be anyone within your organization. Maybe you're generating a report for people outside of your organization, key stakeholders, key organizations that need frequently updated information on their employees' training activities with your company. So I could put a bit of information here. Let's just say, I'm going to send this to myself, arlo.co. I can specify a schedule. I need this every month on the 6th day at, not that early, please. Let's say 10:30 a.m. And then finally, whether you're going to send it in securely, this will just be sent out as the actual report itself, or send securely, in which we can specify a password and some file instructions around it, and that's going to be sent out as a zip, which I need the password to unlock. Just before I schedule that, in fact, I will schedule that just so we can see what that looks like. Oh, the other thing I want to be able to show you, if we go back into registrations insight, the favorited report is down here. Before you set up your schedule, you have the opportunity to specify an export format. And that allows me to say whether I want an XLSX or a CSV. And this is useful because if you're sending this out to just customers, a customer, or you're sending it out internally just to review the data, XLSX is fine. If you're looking to do more data analysis and more manipulation on that data, you obviously want to probably use it as a CSV. So I can do that. I can save it, and then I would set up the schedule for it, and then it would save for changes, and that would go out as a CSV rather than XSX. I typically recommend CSVs, especially if you're going to be looking to do more data analysis afterwards. Here is that example of a scheduled report down in this bottom right-hand corner. We can edit it easily, or I can go into it. Nice thing about scheduled report is someone requests they need it right now, boop, I can just run that one for them. So the organization gets in touch, says, actually, I need this straight away. We can see here, I've just jumped into the communication log. Since this is a secure version, download that as such. I'm just going to put that there. And then it's not going to let me do this. So if I just drop this over here, of course, it's not going to let me run it. That's unfortunate. That's just the problem with my PC. but you understand the principles there. Wonderful.
Thanks, Nick, for that great overview of the reports. And hello to everyone who's joining us today. My name's Jarrod. If you missed the start of the webinar, I manage our customer support and success teams. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with customer reports over the many years that I've been with Arlo. So it's great to be able to get in front of you guys and talk you through some business intelligence examples today. Just before we move on quickly, Nick's obviously had limited time to touch on some of the reporting scenarios so far. And obviously the Arlo reporting engine is, very big and you can do lots with it. So if you are still struggling, running a certain report, or you've got a question about how to get the data that you need out of the system, feel free to get in touch with our support team at support@arlo.co. They'll be more than happy to help you out. So definitely get in touch with them if you need to. Now, in terms of this next segment, business intelligence, we've looked at so far in this webinar how to use Arlo reports to, put in predefined queries and get the information out that you need, which is really, really good. What I'm going to be doing is taking a bit of a deeper dive into how to use some of the additional features within Arlo to combine with the reports that we have, so that you can get out some really, really valuable business intelligence to help make you better informed training decisions essentially for your business. So just in terms of the scenarios that we're going to be looking at today, there's three key scenarios. The first one is course profitability. So Nick's shown you the performance report a bit earlier on, which does a really good job of showing you how much revenue each course is bringing in. But that's sort of only half the picture. What you don't have in that report is obviously information about what it's costing you to run the course, and therefore is that course profitable overall. So I'm going to be taking you through a way that you can actually use Arlo to record expenses, pull data out about those expenses, and then combine it with the revenue data that you have to determine if a course is profitable or not. So very neat stuff. Occupancy rates, this is quite a neat report. So we're going to be looking at which of your courses are consistently, having the highest occupancy rates. Who are the, how many people are coming to each of those courses compared to the maximum limit that you have? Which courses, on the other hand, are not getting anywhere near the limits that you have, and do you need to make some changes there to make sure that you can accommodate the right audiences? And the last example was a quick one. So just a way to quickly extract your top paying customers. So which customers are consistently putting through, the most orders or paying you the most for the courses that are being put through in the Arlo checkout. These are obviously the customers that you want to maintain a really good relationship with, the ones you want to be reaching out to and offering things like, special promotions to get them to keep coming back, vouchers, special promotions, heaps of things that you can do there to, to maintain that business. So let's just jump over into course profitability and start off with this scenario. So I'm just going to jump into Arlo. Now, before we actually start running the reports on profitability, what we need to do is actually make sure that the platform is set up to be able to record expenses. And the way that we're going to be doing this is using custom fields. So out of the box, these fields won't exist on your Arlo platform. You will need to create them. So I'm just going to show you how to do that quickly. So if we jump into the settings menu, and then we go down to the platform setup, we've got fields, and we've got courses. So this is where we can actually add or remove any additional fields that we need to store information on each of our individual scheduled courses. So I'm going to open that up. Now I've already set up a couple of fields here because we've got some pre-made scenarios I'm going to be running you through, but in your case, this is likely to have no fields. And so what you want to do is add new fields. And to do that, all you need to do is drag the type of field you want. And in this case, a single line of text is usually the best, and move it into active fields. And here you'll be able to add your field label. Now, I suggest adding 2 fields to start off with. You might want more if you've got a more complex expense model. But in this case, I'm just going to use fixed costs, and then I can save that field. Now, I won't need to do that because I've already got that field saved, so we won't need to worry about that. I'll just cancel that one. And so the idea is that you can do that using the field editor to build fields for fixed and variable costs. Now, once that's done, what that's going to allow you to do is anytime you set up a new course in Arlo, so we'll just jump through the wizard to show you. you're then going to have this additional information at the bottom here, which is going to allow you to record fixed costs for the course. So this could be for things like, the venue hire, the presenter cost, any other additional fixed costs that you're aware of. And then you've also got variable costs. So this could be, your per head cost for training material and resources that you hand out, as well as catering. So you can pop in your fixed and variable costs. And as I mentioned, you can have additional fields for additional expenses if you need them. That might be relevant for some courses, but not relevant for others. You don't have to add in the expenses at the time of setting the event up. You can also jump into any existing event and simply edit it. And you can use the schedule tab here to go in and change the expenses related to the course. So in this case, this one's already got some, so fixed cost of 200 and a variable cost of 40 per head. So that's great. So what this is then going to allow us to do is, when we actually run a report on our events using the advanced event report, I could, for instance, say that I want all of my courses that started within the previous 12 months. So I'll just pop that information in. And I want to know for each of those courses what the fixed cost was, what the variable cost was, and if I've got additional fields, I can add them into this report as well. But I also need to know, because we've got a variable cost, we need to know the number of registrants that came on the course. So I'm going to pop in the registrant count, and that's going to be the current count, because we don't want to include things like cancelled registrations or registrations that haven't been paid for or approved yet. And so we can now preview this report, and I can see all of my courses, when they were, where they were. And on this side here, I've got the information that we just added to the report about our expenses. So I can see what each cost of courses cost me at a fixed cost rate, what the variable costs for each of those courses is, and how many approved registrants we had on each of those courses as well. So using that data, I can then export it. And that's going to tell me half the picture. The other half obviously comes from the performance report, which Nick showed you a bit earlier. So I can open the performance report, I can pop in my date range, and I can run the report to get an idea of the revenue that each of those courses has actually brought in. And so using those two reports now, what I can do is I can actually combine that data. So I'm just going to show you an example that I set up a bit earlier. So basically what I've done is I've extracted the performance report and I've put it on a sheet called revenue. So nice and simple. And I've also extracted the event report with my expenses and I've put it on a sheet called expenses. Now using this data, I've then taken some simple Excel formulas to determine whether or not a course is profitable. So for the expense column, for example, I'm calculating the fixed costs plus the variable cost times the number of registrants on the course to get the overall expense for that course. And that's going to tell me, how much it's costing us to run each of these courses. In the revenue column, I'm using a lookup using the course code here, or the event code. And so we're basically saying, find the course in the revenue list and pull through the revenue that we've generated for that course. So now we have an idea of what our expenses are and what our revenue for the course was in a single source. And then finally, I've used a simple calculation to take the expenses away from the revenue to determine if the course is profitable or not. And so just like that, we can see that anything in the green here, because I've put some conditional formatting on the sheet, is going to tell us if the course is profitable. Anything in the red is going to say that, we've actually lost money in this course. And as a training provider, you can look at this data to say, well, the profitable courses, should we be running more of them? How can we exploit that further? The courses that are not making us any money, why is that? Do we need to cut costs? Are we not marketing it well enough? Do we need to look at reducing venues expenses or catering expenses? What is it that's causing us not to make as much money on these courses as other ones, which is obviously really important for your business. So the scenario is obviously involving a few steps. You've got to make sure the platform is set up and you've got the fields there. Once that's done, you don't need to do it again, which is the great thing about it. And from there on, it's just a case of making sure you're obviously adding the expenses into those fields that you've created. And in terms of running the reports, 2 reports, really simple to do. suggest saving them as favorites once they're set up. And having a template like this just makes it nice and easy as well, because once you've done it once, you can save the template and simply dump the data onto it, and the calculation fields are going to work, work it all out for you and give you the information that you need. So hopefully you found that that example really, really useful. So we've looked at reports in Arlo, and we know that they're really good at providing us, as an example, an event list with the number of registrants on that course, or a particular course with a list of the registrants on that course. What we're going to do is take a bit of a deeper dive into that and look at occupancy rates. So there's a couple of really good features inside of Arlo that help you really make the most of this data. So let's just jump into the platform. And if we go across to our course page, for those of you who are quite familiar with the course wizard, you will know that when you're setting up a new course in Arlo, you can specify a minimum and a maximum registration limit. And so the place that this is done is when you're actually going through the course creation process, on the registrations tab of the wizard, right down here at the bottom, you can see registration limits. And so this is where you can actually specify for a course what the minimum number of registrants on the course should be, and what the maximum number of registrants on the course should be. And when the maximum number is reached, that's when Arlo will stop taking registrations for that course and activate the waiting list. There is also a couple of useful features here, which are automated alerts, which you can actually set up to be sent automatically if, for example, the minimum number is not met or the maximum number is met, which is quite neat. Once that's done, in terms of the actual course page, you're going to be able to really clearly see which courses have the min met, which have the min not met. And you've also got these views that you can use as well to quickly filter and see that data in a bit more detail. In terms of the course list pages, just a quick note, you've also got exports which you can use. So if you're ever on your course page and you've applied filters, or you've got into a certain view and you just want to get that data out really quickly, exports is a great way to do that, because it's super fast, and you can do that across the platform as well. So if I was looking at a list of contacts that I'd applied some advanced filters on, I could really quickly just export those out. Or if I was looking at a list of orders, I could do the same thing, and it's going to save me from actually having to go and run a report. Now in this case, because we are looking at reports, I am going to use a report. So I'm going to jump into the event list advanced. And we're going to use the same scenario before. So I'm going to look at the events starting within the previous 12 months. I could use 1 year if I wanted to. And in terms of the field results, what I want is I want to find out what my occupancy rates are. And so I want to know what the minimum registration limit is. I want to know what the maximum registration limit is. And I also need to know the number of registrants on each of those courses. So I'm going to type in the registrant count. And I'm going to use the current plus pending. So what this is basically saying is all approved registrants plus registrants that may be awaiting approval, because there's a good chance those orders are going to be paid. We're not going to cancel those registrations, so they are going to contribute to the occupancy rates of the course. So I'm going to use current plus pending instead of just current, which is essentially approved. And then when I can run this report, I can now extract all this data to use and further manipulate. So just to take a quick look at an example that I prepared a bit earlier, I'm going to jump across into our spreadsheet. So I've dumped in the data that the report has generated for me. I've then just created a couple of quick new columns in this template, which I can use if I save the template moving forward whenever I want. So the first one is minimum met, and it's just going to tell me if the minimum has been met or not. So similar to the filter that we have available in Arlo. And so this is just looking at, is the number of registrants on the course more than the minimum number that we had set? And if it is, make it yes or no. So a nice simple Excel formula there. And this next one here is the one that we're really interested in. This is the occupancy on the course. And so this is telling us, how many people on the course have been registered compared to the maximum number of registrants that we set on that course. So what's our total occupancy? And again, just a nice simple formula that Excel has used to calculate this for me, which is the total number of registrants divided by the maximum count and displaying the results as a percentage there. What we can also do using this data now as an example is I've created a total occupancy field, and I've just used an average of all of the occupancy rates across all of the courses that we've run in the last 12 months. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. So as an example, let's pretend that you've spent a truckload more on marketing than you usually would have this quarter. And so running a report like this, you can actually see, well, what is our occupancy rate for the quarter, for the courses that have just been, compared to, say, the last quarter where we didn't have as much investment in our marketing, i.e. is that actually a good return on investment? Are we seeing the numbers come through on our courses? Obviously, lots of other bits and pieces you can do with some information. You can see which of your courses are in most demand, sort by highest occupancy to lowest. Do we need to run more of those courses? Because obviously the customers want to keep coming to them. And on the flip side of that, which of our courses have the lowest occupancy rates? Are there ways that we can actually cut costs there? Do we need to run them as face-to-face courses, or can we run an online trimmed down version of the course at a lower price, which is actually going to be a lot more profitable for us in the long run, because we know the numbers for those courses are historically low. So, it's really just getting creative with all of the data inside of Arlo and finding ways to use it so that you can make, really informed decisions about your training business. Now, obviously, this report that we use to pull the data, the majority of this data, was the same report that we used to pull in our expenses as well. So, if you wanted to get really creative, you could combine all of this into one big, in one big master report, which will provide you information about course profitability, your occupancy rates, your revenue, your expenses, all in one. It's just going to require a bit of work to get that template initially set up, but the value that you'll get from something like that is obviously massive. So in terms of the last scenario that we're going to just jump over and take a look at is going to be our top paying customers. So we're just going to quickly look at a way to extract the list of the customers that are using, you for training the most. They're obviously paying you more than any other customers, because these are the customers that you want to, establish really good relationships with. You want to be reaching out to them to offer them things like, discounts or promotions so that they come back next time. Maybe sell them a training voucher at a, potentially lower price than your standard carded rates to encourage them, to come back for that repeat business. So let's just jump across into the platform now, and we'll show you how you can really quickly extract that list. We're looking for the organizations that are putting through the most orders or providing the most value to our business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the order list report, because that's going to allow me to summarize all of the orders that have been submitted over a period of time. And I'm going to add in my conditions the order created date I'm going to use, because I want to look at orders created over a period of time. So let's say the previous year, as that falls in line with our other examples. But we also want to make sure we don't include any cancelled orders, because that may skew our results. So I'm also going to include a clause for order status, and I'm going to say does not equal cancelled. And so that's going to provide me with all of the orders that I want to review over the past year. And in terms of the results, we can see that the total due is already in there. I'm not too worried about status, so I'll remove that because I know cancelled orders have already been taken out. We've got the total amount of the order, which is tax inclusive. So that's the main figure I'm interested in. I don't really mind if there's a payment still due. I'm going to take that one out. And we've got the bill to organization name there as well. So I can now extract all of that data really easily and export it to Excel. Now, in terms of the raw data sheet that it provides me, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to highlight all of the data, and I'm going to nice and easily insert a pivot table. And so what this is going to let me do is easily manipulate that data. So for example, we're looking for the organizations. So I want to put in the row as an organization, and that's going to list me all of the organizations that have had orders billed to them in the past 12 months. And next, I want to actually take the order total, and I'm going to pop that in the value. So that's going to sum up all of the order totals that have been submitted for a certain organization over a period of time. And so just like that, I can now see really easily how much each organization is worth to our business over the past 12 months in terms of orders that have been submitted. And once it's in this, in this format, you can do what you want with it. You can sort it by highest to lowest, or pull it out and add in the additional details such as the billing contact. But we can clearly see in this example that Design Q is, the #1 organization that's paying for our services. And so that's a really good example of a relationship that we want to encourage and continue to move forward. So hopefully that's another, nice, simple example that you can use to start extracting some of the more valuable information out of the Arlo reporting engine. Now, in terms of what's next, basically, if you haven't already, just get into the reports. Obviously, there's lots there. We've talked about quite a few scenarios today, but it's not until you start using them that you can really derive value from them. So we really do encourage you to just jump in, have a look around, start trying to build some different types of reports. There's an Arlo U module in reports. So if you haven't been into your demo company before, definitely worthwhile jumping into that, using Arlo U to run through the reports module. It's going to take you through some really basic examples. We've got lots of information in our help center about all the different types of reports and what they can be used for to extract, as well as a couple of recipes as well. So the example around the profitability, as an example, there's a step-by-step guide in the help center on how to do that. And also, as I've already mentioned at the start of the webinar, just shout out if you do run into any issues and you need some help, because we are here to help. And yeah, we definitely know that the reporting engine, at first, it can be a little overwhelming, but once you get the hang of it, we think that you'll find it's super simple and super powerful, and will hopefully provide you a lot of value. So thank you once again to everybody who's joined us today, and a big thanks to Nick, who also helped us out at the start of the webinar, running through those key report scenarios, and a big thanks to our support desk as well, who are on standby at the moment, answering any questions that you might have had or been throwing at them. But that's it from me, and I hope that we do hear from you soon. And yeah, looking forward to running the next webinar. See you later.